When women say Happy Father's Day, I'm sorry, you just picked the wrong dude. I'm sorry. You should have realized that your vagina was worth more and picked a better dude.
Oh, wow.
Period.
Oh, boy.
Let's go, pick your feet up, though. Let's go, pick your feet up, though. Come on.
811 crew, what is up, world? It's your boy Jay Turner.
And Ulysses Slugger Glenn.
We are in the house, back in it, ready to chop it up about some more.
Some interesting subject. A very interesting subject.
Absolutely, but also kind of controversial,
Controversial.
depending on your perspective. We are going to be chopping it up on child custody.
Yeah. Who
Now,
gets the kids? Who
right.
gets them children?
And if you've been divorced, like Ulysses and me,
right?
It's me.
Ulysses and I.
Let me do the English piece, okay? Like
I just said me is me. I didn't
right?
I
No,
wasn't
you
adding
said
it to your thing.
but me, it's Ulysses
anyway,
and me.
It's Ulysses
Okay,
and I.
see,
Go ahead.
okay.
It's Ulysses and I.
So, well, it is now. Ulysses and I will discuss. You see how the difference is? It's whether
Right.
the I or the me. You kind of
You always say
You be an English major. Just roll with me. Anyway,
anyway,
Slugger and I are going to talk about some of the things that really make divorce and separation really ugly, and that's the kids. And
Yeah, it
and
does.
the kids can get crazy. Like, people talk about money being a problem. People talk about affairs or whatever, but the kids, yo.
Yeah, the kids are. Yeah, the
If
kids
you
are,
can't get on the same page about the children, then it's about to be scorched earth. What you think?
It's for the kids. People use the kids as a bigger pawn. Even
Which
more
is
than
messed
money.
up.
Yeah, the kids become a pawn because one thing is whoever controls the kids, you're most likely getting money, so on and so forth. So, there's child support. So you're getting child support. Whoever the kids stay with gets the child support unless you share time 50-50.
Well, now back in the day. Now, again, the sharing you mentioned some interesting things that are different today versus back in the day. Now, back in the day when our parents were coming up, if you got a divorce, it was almost always certain, right, that the mom was going to get the kids. Like when we were growing up, did we ever? I never even saw a TV show, unless you talking about Andy Griffith. I never saw a TV show where the dad had the kids, and I mean, what?
I guess, you are correct. Back then, you never heard of there was circumstances, even with, I think, Andy Griffith show, they never really explained why.
I think maybe the mom might have died, and that's why Aunt B was there.
They never explained. You just kind of thought, you never knew.
Right.
But
you knew that Andy Griffith was macking. That's what you knew.
Yeah,
that's what you knew.
Yeah. I was just about to say, Andy got his Mac on.
He was winning.
But no, what I was going to say is that, so now, it's, you'll see dads with full custody. You'll see people, arguments about the kids, whereas, I have the kid 2 times a week, then you have them 3. So there's the really, really shared custody. Then there's the ones where one parent has the majority of the custody. Then the mom or dad has the child on every other weekend or every weekend. They have some type of thing during the summer, so on and so forth.
Have different agreements.
But the thing is, what happens to get to that level? Like, what do they do to get to that level? And, or some of them are easy, some can be difficult, but I know in the majority of the states, I believe, is that it's automatically 50-50.
Is it automatic? Now, see, this is what, I don't know what the latest laws are, but I didn't know it was like, have we put that progressive now?
I can tell you, when I became emancipated, it was 50. It automatically was 50-50. So the emancipation.
That might have been in that Maryland.
No, it was. We got.
I mean, in Maryland, not Maryland, but in the state of Maryland.
No, we got divorced in Connecticut because I allowed this this great, wonderful person, to move to Connecticut and help her with her career that she got fired. That she no longer works there with these people, and I'm not happy about it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you see, divorce can be a very touchy subject.
It was, what was I going to say? So there, I can tell you that it was automatic. So unless someone came with something, it was very hard to prove that the person, that was been like, I believe a separate hearing. You have to show a whole lot. So you get that. I think we had to decide on where he was going to live. And he was already living there, going to school. So that I went along with that. But he was.
Yeah, how old were you? How old was Trey when you guys got divorced?
He was. When was I emancipated? 15. So he was 14.
Okay,
So
and Jacob and Catherine were 11 and 7.
Really?
When I got divorced. So I mean, it was interesting.
That's why you were the trendsetter. You were the first one.
Was I
of our
really
crew.
the first one?
You and I won't say his name, but it was another friend
I mean,
of ours.
we were married. I was married almost 15 years, so
Yeah,
months
we
had
all
some
were.
good. We all
Yeah,
had
we
some
had
good
some
runs. I mean, it was no
yeah.
like 7-year
I did
itch or anything like
I did
that.
a bid.
We did
I did a full bid.
good little pace.
Didn't nobody put no money in my books, but
Now
I did a bid.
I'm going to tell you something. When we
Well,
were,
I did a bid. Like
now when my former wife and I got to the discussion, now we know that we're going to get a divorce,
Right.
etc. I remember clear as day the first conversation we had about this. And she said, "Well, I was thinking that the kids are going to be with me." I was like, full stop. I mean, like, I was like, what? Oh, we're not. I was like, you are absolutely
Right.
tripping. I was like, there is no scenario. We can stop right here. There is no scenario upon which I will not have 50%, my
Yeah.
kids living with me half
Right.
the time, with you half the time. If you don't want the kids full time, that's on you. We can walk about
Yeah.
that. But there's going to
You're
be,
not
it's
taking my
going to be,
kids.
the first words that
Right.
are coming out of my mouth is joint custody.
right.
And I don't know if that was what the deal is in D.C. or other states, whatever. But I had to give my ex. I almost kind of applauded her for trying that, out the gate. Like, I'll take both the kids.
No, mine, no.
Yeah.
No, mine knew not even to bring that up.
But my thing is, does
That
anybody?
would have been-
Is there anybody out there now? You think in 2023?
Oh.
Is there anybody out there now who would still believe that in a divorce scenario, automatically the mom should get the kids?
Well, do I think there's mothers that believe that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wholeheartedly. Yeah,
Still
yeah,
just
oh,
on
yeah.
GP.
Oh yeah, just like the sun rises and they believe, because I've actually, friend of mine. So let's go back. I think when we originally were going to have this show, we were going to have guests on here. We were going to male guests. So I reached out to a few friends of mine, and everyone I talked to was like, "No, things are going well. I don't want to talk about it, or it's been over. Let it go." So, but I can tell you how traumatic some of them have been. I've even had to. I mean, I've seen where the ex-wife how they lie, make things up. Manipulate the children.
Yeah.
And to the point, this man just wants to see his children.
Right.
We have another friend, when you talk to men who haven't seen their children in years, I mean, I was one of them. And, so when you don't see your child and your ex-wife moves, you find out because you're trying to serve them papers and they move. Oh, excuse me. They didn't move. They just were in Puerto Rico in a summer house with cable and everything in their name. They didn't move. Excuse me. So,
Carry on.
so you see these, you have friends, and I can tell you for myself, it was embarrassment. You wouldn't have talked about it. Even you and I'm like, well, let me finally tell this guy, And if no one's going to go around like, hey, I don't see my kids,
You know what,
it's
that
not a
is real.
shirt.
You know what? That is really real of you to talk about that like that here,
it's-
because you are absolutely right. As tight as we are,
Yeah.
I did not know that Trey was not with you, like that,
yeah.
because you're right. That is, and
And then you
it's
also,
very tough.
You also, for me, you thought it was more of an economic thing. So you're like, okay, someone, making less money, less educated, so on and so forth. This is not something that two adults, college educated, professional people, this doesn't happen.
Right,
And you're like,
right.
whoa, this does happen, because one, you have the money to keep going with it. And the more, you realize, talk to your friends, your male friends, they're like, yeah, I haven't seen my kids, or they're here, we're having some issues. You're like, wow, like it's a, or, the other thing, when they do see their kids and the ex-wife is calling the police on them because they're 10 minutes late. I mean, we have friends
Yeah,
that are
man.
professionals
Yes.
that can have almost lost their license because they're 10 minutes bringing the kids back. She should be arrested for wasting the time of
Right.
taxpayers' money. And
Right.
I'm like, but
And the
What's
thing that's
everything?
always so bad too, and we're gonna take a break
Right.
here. I feel like this is, what, I really didn't expect this to be for this topic to kind of affect me this way, honestly. But it just shows how when things deal with your kids, it strikes you at a whole different level. When we get back, we'll talk about how it can work out. For my side of it, it did end up working out
Yes, it did.
much
Excellent.
better.
Yes.
And when we get to the break, we'll talk about some ways that sometimes it doesn't go right. And we'll also share some ways and some strategies to try to make things go better. 811 Crew, we'll be back. 811 Crew, we are back, and we're dealing with a tougher topic than we expected. And that is divorce, the kids, getting to a state of equality, getting to a new normalcy when you divorce and you have kids. We talked about how difficult it is.
Yeah.
In this segment, after this segment here, we also want to talk about how whack it can be, but we also are going to share, as we said, some strategies of how perhaps things can be better.
Yeah.
One of the things that I felt that helped Stacey and I really develop a framework was once we got past the foolishness or any notion that there was going to be anything other than 50-50 joint custody. And then also once we got to the fact that there's going to be no child support, these are both our kids, and we will, whatever they need, we will split that or figure out how we're going to afford that. Once we had that, we went with something called the 225 plan. The 225 plan, it worked really well for us in terms of 50-50. My days, I always had the kids on Monday nights and Tuesday nights.
Okay.
The mom would always have the kids on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights.
Okay.
And then we would alternate weekends. So that means I'm going to have the kids for 2 nights. Then she's going to have the kids for 2 nights.
Okay.
And then whosever weekend it is, then that's going to be a 5-day stretch. So when it was my weekend, I would have the kids, I would have the kids on Monday and Tuesday. Then and if it was my weekend, then she would have the kids Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So those would be my 5 days.
Okay.
And then on the reverse, when it was my
That's
weekend,
right.
she would do the Wednesday and Thursday. Then I'd have the kids Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Okay.
So that kind of went back and forth each week, and it really worked out well. They have different bedrooms. Their bedroom in my place, clothes at both places.
As they got older, they can go back and forth.
They go back and forth. And also, I think one thing that made it very convenient, and this is something that you touched on before the break, Stacey and I lived purposely
Close to each
within 6.5 minutes of each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
So that it was easy for the kids and for us to make that transition back and forth. On the other hand, some people do the absolute opposite move and move away with their kids a long way away.
Right, exactly. But that wasn't supposed to happen. But they only went there for vacation.
Supposedly.
Supposedly. So, but, one thing I have to say, I have to give your ex a lot of credit because she's actually a very nice person. And I think the two of you all were at a point where neither one of you all wanted each other anymore. You were like, we're not in love anymore. So this is how it's able to be amicable. I think what happens in a lot of relationships, one of the persons, or maybe even both of them, don't, they're saying they want a divorce, but they really want the person to stay, or they want something to change. They really don't want the divorce to happen, or the other things they want to give harm to the other person.
Yeah, they want to just
They
hurt you.
want to hurt the person. Sometimes somebody's been hurt, so they're like, okay, I want you to be hurt, but the only way to hurt you is through your children. And what they don't realize, you're actually hurting the child as well.
Yes.
Because if it took 2 people to make a child, it takes 2 people to raise a child. There's a man can't teach a little girl how to be a woman, and a woman can't teach a little boy how to be a man. I'm sorry.
Very true.
Yeah, when women say Happy Father's Day, I'm sorry. You just picked the wrong dude. I'm sorry. You should have realized that your vagina was worth more and picked a better dude.
Oh wow.
Period.
Oh boy. Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Okay, we might have to have that. Might have to be a poll question of some sort in the future. But right now, we have a poll question.
We do.
We're gonna come back to those types of politics that you talking about. But in the meantime, we're gonna ask a question
I had to light
about.
it up.
Oh yeah, Jeff, we're gonna just bring it back here. But the poll question though about this was historically, women are more likely to gain custody of their children over men. And I guess the question that we asked people was, should men, if looking at this from a current day perspective, should men have more opportunities to gain custody, to either starting off when the relationship is over? Should more men go for full custody of their kids? Do women out there believe that men should have more custody? Have things changed? Now, we normally would have Carmen here.
But Carmen's kicking.
Carmen is kicking in somewhere.
Carmen's lit.
We don't
She's
know where
turned.
she is.
She's turned. She's
but,
turned. Where is
she's,
Carmen?
She's lit. Right. But guess who? We have Mo.
Should men have more opportunities to gain custody? 91% say yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
see?
yeah.
See, there we go.
We need our kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do.
Right.
We do.
We need our kids. We need our kids. We need our kids.
Now, do you think that now there was no other questions that wasn't because women said, because I want the money that man make. I want they ain't say the reasons. There was no reasons.
No
in that.
reason.
Okay.
If you think about it, everyone needs a break or something, but you have the kids 100% of the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
You would actually think like, hey, why don't you take the kids? I remember, growing up, my parents were married, but my dad would take, my mom would, she was staying home, but she would take the kids. It was hilarious. My dad took us to see Porky's. I was in 5th grade. But I think it was one of the few times. It was hilarious. That's
rated
a whole
R.
nother
That was
story.
your dad took you to a rated R
in 5th grade.
Wow. Did
Me
you
and
see?
my-
Did you go
everything.
see Fast Times at Ridgemont High
I saw that
together
later.
too?
No, that was later.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Risky Business,
Oh,
Family Night.
Those are my family movies, favorite
Wow.
movies. I love Fast. Everyone in my high school Fast.
Hopefully, y'all watching this have all seen these movies that we talking about here. And Mo, if you have not seen any of the movies
Nah,
I
I
mentioned,
haven't.
you have not.
Oh,
Whoa,
yeah.
whoa, whoa,
Whoa.
You have
Nah.
not seen Risky Business?
No.
Oh, Lord have mercy. But you've seen Top Gun.
Yeah.
And you probably seen Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
So
But
he
you have
started-
not seen
Nah.
Risky Business.
Nah, I haven't seen it.
Man,
Oh, you gotta see
come
Risky
on,
Business
baby.
first.
You better on
You
demand
got
that
to see
tonight,
Risky
bro.
Business
Risky
first.
Business. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my goodness. Man, you gotta know.
I'm gonna watch that. It's about to be on my list.
We can't pay for that song. Sorry. But no, so thank you for the poll question though. But other thing is, is it better to get divorced when the children were younger, or do you wait till they get older?
See you know what? That is such a great question right there. And what do you think? Because I always feel like the parents, I feel like the people who can't stand each other anyway are like, we just need to get a divorce because you don't want to put the kids through that.
My parents were married for 31 years and got divorced. I was like, really?
Right.
Like that happened? So it was weird because you became an adult. You had to realize to, visit both, parents separately. So I had a great childhood. I was like, okay, it was cool. I thought everything
Now,
was
did
great.
your parents, like, at some point, did you observe your parents ride on different sides of the Winnebago? Like, at one point,
Well, it
did
was
mom
gone,
go
but-
from the right front seat to the
Well,
back?
as we got
what?
older, I had moved here, so I was living here. And did you know? Not really. You didn't really notice things. And, my dad was there, or first of all, my parents don't talk about, we're from a generation, your parents don't talk about, you're not their friend. So they're not going to sit there like, yeah, your mom's
Right.
tripping.
Whoa, that's a big
not
difference
happening.
between now and
Right, your
yesteryear.
your mother's not talking to you about your father.
No
That's
one's
like
cared
stuff
about
that-
your feelings.
Yeah, they're not. So next thing we know, they're just getting a divorce. Like, and even now, you're not gonna ask that question.
But at the end of the day, what you were probably happiest about is that your room is still intact.
oh yeah, my room's still there.
So would you
everything.
have rather your parents gotten a divorce younger and y'all move out the crib and
Oh, I hated that.
Yeah, or
Yeah, I
you
hated that.
but don't you think that your parents, somebody in these days might have said, "Well, we're going to move to a nice new condo and
That's
Ulysses
what-
will like his room better there."
That's what the person we don't mention. She did that.
Yeah.
And I remember even saying like, hey, why don't we just stay married. We're cool the way I'm cool the way it is, like
Yeah.
this, like you know.
Right.
Why mess up the finances?
Exactly.
So I never understood that, but I guess that's that hatred. When you're that mad, you're like, wow, you're that mad.
Right. But I mean, so what can you do to? I mean, we have both have had different experiences. Obviously, yours was a bit more combative. Like
we see where mine is.
Right.
So maybe I should have sued for more custody.
but then again, I mean, are there any tips that you can look back on and maybe not with this partner, but any practical tips that we can say to our listeners, somebody, a brother or a sister who's out there going through this, how can it be a better outcome than what you experienced?
I think you should start from the beginning. One thing is when you realize when you're getting married, you're marrying not only that person, but you're marrying the family.
Yes, Lord.
You're marrying you're marrying the aunts, you're marrying the uncles, the grandfather. You're marrying all that family history as well. That's one thing. Two, I will also suggest when you look at a family and there's no men in the family, you're like, wait a minute, it's all women. Wait, I'm not saying that's a red flag, but
It's a red flag.
But it ain't a green light.
It's not a green light. It's definitely a dark yellow.
Right.
You're like, wait a minute.
Danger.
Right. You got rid of all the men? Like there's none. You know, even the uncles don't come around. They just get a plate and leave. And everyone, you're like, wow, the uncle's not here.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are things I would definitely, you look at, and I'm not saying everyone has to grow up the same way, but you need to have the same values, and the family has to have the same values as well. I mean, that is the number one thing I say. I mean, because families, I mean, they're there. Once you have kids, they come on like...
Family is a key thing. I will tell you that family was one of the key elements that helped actually my divorce settlement and the kids thing work out better.
Really?
My stepmother, she and I had a very rough relationship when I was younger. It was, now that I'm older, I totally understand more in retrospect the things that she was doing for me, that she didn't have to do, even though she was my stepmom. But one of those key things was that when Stacy and I were getting ready to get a divorce, and Stacy knew how difficult my past was with my stepmother. But my stepmother, after divorcing my dad, went on to become a divorce lawyer.
Really?
In Georgia.
Okay.
So I reached out to her and I said, look, Stacy and I are getting a divorce. Can you be a mediator for us? Can you come in town? We're trying to do a spreadsheet. Can you help us bang out a divorce agreement?
Okay.
And go through these things? And she was like, absolutely. So she flew up. We got her a ticket. She flew up.
Oh, really? Okay.
She stayed at our house. We had a spreadsheet that had JET on one side and SYS on the other, and all the artwork, all the things.
I'm gonna go ahead and get
And
Stacey.
wait a minute now. That was a joint. That was a joint idea. That was my stepmother. I brought that. You think she brought that up? No, that was your boy.
Yeah, but for her to go along with, like, I mean, because most of the times they don't.
That's
go along
because
with-
Jason Turner's
Right.
argument made sense. I produced. That's a good tip.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I knew that I had someone in my family who was an absolute ball buster, who Stacy knew was not going to give me an advantage on one thing, and I knew that she wouldn't give Stacy the advantage. So we ended up getting all that worked out for the cost of her plane ticket and dinner. But look at your family. If there's anyone in your family that's a hard ass that both you and your former mate are like, I don't know about them, get that mug to come in and be a mediator. Might save a whole bunch of money, and you need someone who can call when it is happening.
I was married to the Munsters.
Oh, wow.
Literally, because realize what her name is. Remember on that show, The Munsters? Remember the one that looked normal?
Well, my line name was Eddie Munster. That's what they called me growing up. I had Widow's Peak. See, it's gone now. I done filed it down now.
No,
you might remember last season I had more of it was like Florida up there.
No, those were the Munsters.
Okay.
Literally the Munsters. They did. Complete. No.
Well, but check it out. We got to get ready to go to another break.
We got to take a break.
We got to
pay the bills.
I thought this was going to be. It's amazing how this has gone. This conversation has gone by very fast and brings up a lot of different feelings for me. But, we at a point where we got to talk about what the question is for next week.
Oh yeah, the next poll question. Oh yeah.
Question for next week. Why don't you talk about what just a
poll
tease of
question. Okay.
what we're gonna be looking at for next week?
What are we looking for next week?
It's about different.
No,
how would
oh
we do
yeah, here
things
we are.
differently?
Here we are. Okay. Knowing what you know now,
And we know a lot.
would you go back in time and make different choices? And what would they be? What was something I wanted? What would the choices
I
be?
mean, I got 1,028 options, but
We'll
when we
see
come
it
back
back-
from the break, we're gonna hear about that. Well, that's what's gonna be on our next show.
But we're gonna wrap up about good dads because there are a lot of good dads out there. We know you guys are there, and we're rooting for you.
Right.
I am.
And who's that angry family member that you can get in to be the ball buster for everybody if you're getting a divorce? 811 Crew will be
be
back. 811 Crew, we are back.
We're back.
We're talking about relationships.
back,
We're
we're
talking
back.
about them children.
We're talking about fun stuff. This is gonna be fun.
It is fun,
It'll be fun.
but except the parts where it's not fun. But we're talking about how to make lemonade out of lemons, which is critical with the kids. But you know, when the poll, the teaser for next week was knowing what we know, what kind of choices will we make different. And during the break, I started applying that, I guess, to this topic here. If there were are there any things that you would change now that you would go back and do differently with respect to the divorce and child? There's many things you might do differently, but is there one thing that you think you would change?
I would have got divorced earlier.
Divorced earlier.
I would have got divorced earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I would have definitely cut my losses when I first knew this wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
I think I stayed based on my upbringing, my family, things
Yeah.
like that. I should have been out I think I married in 98. I should have been divorced in 97.
That's interesting. That's
Like-
interesting. Now, you know, meanwhile, I feel like that now. Yeah, that's
Well, no,
real.
wait. I was 2000 after April 10th, 2001, because my son was born April 10th, 2001. So I should have got divorced
That,
April
right
11th.
home from the hospital.
April,
should've been
we
done.
should just stop at the court
That-
right there.
That's interesting.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
Now-
I cut the umbilical cord. Dunk.
done. We're gonna cut this and sign it.
Emancipation of Ulysses.
Well, what I would honestly, I think mine is kind of the opposite way. If I could have done it differently, I would have tried to hold out for 2 more years before we got divorced. And you know why? Because at 11 years old, Jacob, my son, we got divorced 2 years before I would have trained that youngin' on how to cut grass, plant bushes, and develop that green thumb that I love. Like, it was nothing better when I was married in my house. I would cut the grass. I cut it 3 different directions so that depending on if it was morning time, I got the grass going diagonally. And the afternoon, it would be
was no-
going to north to
there was-
south. And in the evening, if I'm sitting there smoking a cigar, looking out over my lawn, I got that westerly shadow going
There was
on.
growing up as a kid, there was no afternoon or evening grass cutting.
Well, that's because you all had a lawn service.
No, we had to cut the grass.
you
Ulysses
did?
Glenn Sr. did not play. You
Oh,
had to
yeah,
be
nobody
up.
did that.
You had to be
None
up
of
early.
these kids these days
Oh, no,
know
I
how to
don't.
cut lawns.
No.
I love my kids to death, but I'm telling you, like, if my son would, he
no,
would
no,
look at
no.
a lawnmower like, where's the push button? I mean, he
but
would
you
not
know-
even know how to pull that cord
But
like
you
that.
know what I feel sorry for is the women. Like, y'all marrying these dudes, they can't do it. They can't change the light
Wow.
bulb.
Wow. Who can cut? Mo, you can cut grass.
You got grass, Mo?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm about to
That's why
say.
Mo got a woman.
Right. That's why Mo married.
And she had it.
exactly.
She's like, hell
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's like Mo can cut the grass. It's the right.
No, but I do
understand
feel
it.
like I do. There's little things like that. Like my dad really, taught me how to cut the grass, edge, sweep, blow, get sweaty, not
Make
be
a
worried
bed,
about
I can
bugs,
cook.
all that
Yeah,
other stuff.
bugs, right.
I would have liked to have done that. But 15 years is 15 years, bro.
Well, so he'll get it.
Times
He'll
change,
learn.
things be the same, but the key is the love. We all we can do is love our kids the best we can. We can't make people do what we want them to do. All we can do is the best we can, folks.
Yep.
That's all we can do.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about this topic.
There's no guidebook for being a parent. There's no guidebook for divorce. Only thing I always say is always keep the kids first. Realize you're uprooting their lives. You all made a decision. Always think about the kids. Always make sure what's best for them. And it took 2 people to have the kid. It takes 2 people to raise the child.
Children come first, y'all. 811 Crew.
We're out.
We're out.